What's the most mysterious or unexplained event you've ever experienced that still gives you chills? You know how you can identify people you've lived with for years by their footsteps? Well, my dad had Parkinson's for over 20 years. Parkinson's affects your ability to walk and thus causes a shuffling when trying to initiate movement, like what happens in the beginning of this vid. Unfortunately, my dad was a very stubborn individual, so he never listened to how the doctors told him to properly walk. What he would do is try initiate walking without any walker, which would always be a rapid shuffle, lose balance, and then fall on his knees with a bang. He would then get up, start shuffling again, fall on his knees with a thud, and repeat until he finally started walking. As you can imagine, his knees were in terrible condition and were swollen to the size of bowling balls. I heard this series of shuffling and thuds every day for my entire life. Well, he unfortunately passed away in 2015 due to complications from surgery. A month after his passing, I was upstairs in my room browsing my computer, and that's when I heard that same series of shuffling and thuds I had heard so many times before coming from downstairs. It went on for a couple of seconds and stopped. I was home alone and nearly shit myself. I went downstairs and saw no one there. I lost an entire day. Went to bed Friday night, woke up Sunday morning. Nothing had been disturbed. My phone showed no activity, absolutely no evidence I existed the previous day. I felt absolutely fine, and it hasn't happened again. I've spent 10 years racking my brain over this, and by this point, I'm just gonna chalk it up to aliens. That actually happened to me one time. I was younger and was freaking out if I had a brain tumor or something. Literally nobody but me noticed that I lost an entire day. I think I posted this story before, but when I was in high school, my sister and I were in the kitchen together. I was planning to make a cake, so I got 3 eggs out of the fridge and placed them on the counter. I turned away from the eggs to talk to my sister. We both heard the distinct sound of the eggs rolling off the counter and splatting on the floor. We whipped our heads around at the same time, but the eggs were just sitting there, back on the counter. Only supernatural thing I've ever experienced. So minor, but so odd. I was sitting at a red light, 2-lane road. I was in the right lane, with a big pickup truck blocking my view of the highway I was waiting to cross. My daughter, 6 months old, in the car seat in the back seat. The light turned green, and I heard a distinct female voice say, "Wait." It wasn't the person in the pickup because all windows were closed. The pickup next to me didn't move. 2 seconds later, a semi ran the red light at high speed. Had I proceeded through the light, I would have been obliterated. It haunts me to this day, some 40 years later. I had a similar but less spooky experience. Light turned green, but for some reason, I just didn't feel like going. I sat there for a second or so, just staring at the light and seeing it was green, but choosing not to drive. And the car behind me didn't honk, which I also found odd. As I sat patiently stopped at the green light, someone driving perpendicular blasted through their red at 60 plus. Intuition is a strong force, I guess. Saw someone peek in my room one night while I was playing video games at night as a kid. Had my headphones in and the lights were off, but I did indeed see someone peek in out of my periphery. Figured it was my mom checking on me after getting home as she always did. Was concentrating. Didn't pay it too much mind. Might have called out, "Love you, good night," but don't remember TBH. Went downstairs about 10 months later for water and nobody was home. I work security, a lot of times controlling gate access, a lot of times at night. Now, for those of you not in the know, generally, if you're doing gate access, you're in a small concrete shack with windows everywhere, so you can see what's going on around you. One night, I'm at a warehouse out in the boonies. All the warehouse workers were gone for the night. I'm the only person around for miles. I'm kicking back, chilling, and just watching movies. I glance up, and in the reflection on the glass, I see someone walking by behind my shack. I spin around and look outside. I don't see anyone. Look out of all of the windows. Get up and go outside and look around. Pull up footage. Nothing and no one anywhere. Talk to other guards who had worked night shift at that site. Everyone had experienced it at one point or another. I kept working that site for 2 years, doing a lot of night shifts. That phantom would show up in reflections every now and then at night. It led to our unofficial night shift motto: if you see something strange, no you didn't. A couple of weeks after my mom died, I was driving home from work, feeling very sad and a bit angry. I was pissed off at the universe for leaving me alone. I have no other living family left. She was the last. I was thinking about how we both loved birds and would always point them out to each other. I thought, if all that hippie spirituality stuff mom loved is real, then the least she could do is send me a bird maybe, as a kind of sign. It was a long drive, and I saw no birds at all. I thought, of course it isn't real. What a silly thing to think. I didn't see so much as a robin, or a wren, or anything. I parked and walked down the path to my house. While I was putting my key in the door, something colorful caught my eye. I turned. There at the end of the path was the most astonishing bird I've ever seen. Every color of the rainbow. A bright yellow gold head, scarlet chest, iridescent blue back, orangey gold wings, black striping. It was jaw-dropping. It was the size of a chicken, but a bit taller, with a long tail. It just stood staring at me. I started to laugh, and it got spooked and flapped away over the fence. I lived in a large city, which made it even weirder. My neighbor came outside and saw it too, so it wasn't an hallucination. I got into the house and started Googling colorful birds of that size and shape, and eventually found it. It was a Chinese golden pheasant. WTF? There were no bird sanctuaries or zoos nearby. I never saw it again. I took it as my mom, rolling her eyes at my cynical rejection of her hippie spirituality stuff, saying, "You want to see a bird? I'll send you a bird." It was so great. I was raised in Texas, not far from Louisiana, playing with my younger sister and cousin in my grandmother's driveway. I was around 11 years old. The driveway, which could accommodate 2 cars, was crossed by a bird, or something similar, and its shadow stretched several feet on either side in addition to the driveway's whole width. My grandma started yelling at me to go get the babies. Each of us grabbed a kid and hurried inside. I asked her what was wrong because she was shaking and looking pale. She claimed not to know and never having seen anything. My grandma is a very practical and undramatic person. I still don't know what was flying over her driveway. I give it some thought once. The first time I saw a pelican flying next to my car, I was amazed by how huge it was. If someone was unfamiliar with the local wildlife, it would be scary. When I was a child between 4-6 years old, my sister and I played with a pair of neighborhood siblings down the street. We did this for about 2 years until they moved away. Honestly, I forgot all about them since I was so young, probably 12. 14 years later, when I was an older teenager, I was home from college at a local event /fair/carnival type thing. Out of nowhere, my brain thought, I wonder what happened to my old friends down the scent I played with as a kid. Almost as soon as I thought, I passed by a woman who immediately turned around and yelled, "Bad Chad." It had been more than a decade, and I nearly bumped into her the second she crossed my mind. When I was little, my family and I were coming back from a movie night. We drove down a pretty wooded road. While we were on our way, we saw a glow in the sky. When I pulled my head out of the car, I saw what looked like a fiery sphere in the sky with multicolored halos. I remember the fireball was orange, but it changed to a reddish color, and then, out of nowhere, it disappeared. To this day, I have no idea what I saw that night. I have searched for information on possible explanations, and many people tell me that maybe it was a case of ball lightning or pollen coronas, but none of those explanations resemble what I saw. Meteorites, they can look pretty damn cool, weird in the sky, especially if humid, and they just vanish once they burn up. I've seen a few that were low, kinda like that low down. Seriously, they get really bright and colorful sometimes when they're big and low. I achieved a huge professional milestone, talking massive, and I was so happy. That night, I dreamed that all these women came to my door. At the front of the crowd were 3 of my grandmother's cousins, who I hadn't really known, but they were all nodding and smiling at me. I looked behind them, and there were just rows of women. I know they were all relatives come to congratulate me. I come from a long line of poverty, mill workers, and so forth in the UK. My achievement was huge because it broke literal centuries of poverty. I always think about that dream when I feel low. I was staying with my grandmother for a couple days just visiting. Me and my fiance were sleeping in her guest room. We kept having weird, scary dreams and feeling really uneasy. At night, I would have these dreams, visions of an evil man and woman kind of lurking in the shadows. One night, I was asleep, and all of a sudden, I could feel a hand over my mouth and nose suffocating me. In my sleepy state, I thought it was my partner being weird. He does weird things in his sleep, but suffocating is not one of them, lol. So I pinched the shit out of him. He yelped from pain, which both made us fully wake up. He asked me why I pinched him so hard, and I said, "Because you were trying to suffocate me?" He said no, I was not. We didn't sleep very well for the rest of the night. To this day, we fully believe some sort of spirit had placed its hand over my mouth and nose and restricted my air. We haven't slept in her house since. When I was little, I had this paratrooper action figure. One night, I heard rumbling sounds on my desk. It was dark, but I could see the figure standing up, turning its head quickly, as if it saw me. I freaked out and hid under my covers. Next day, I couldn't find the action figure anywhere. I even got my parents to help look for it. It was gone for good. People never believe me calling it Toy Story or something, but this shit traumatized me. Was this this a one-time thing, or did other instances occur in your childhood? Only happened once. Everyone was having dinner on New Year's, next-door neighbors included, and we were talking about lost loved ones when suddenly there was loud stomping running up the stairs. We all stopped and stared, and the toddlers started crying, and my mom made me and my uncle go up to check it out. I didn't see anything, but I got goosebumps and a horrible sense of dread. None of us can explain it. Oh, actually, the strangest one. I used to live next door to two parents and their son, similar age to me. We got on well, and I was around a lot until I moved away, and we kind of lost contact. Anyway, a few years later, like 10 years later, I had a dream that I was sat in their living room, just me, the son, and the dad. We were sat there just having a nice chat, and it was a really comfortable and friendly atmosphere. Such a chill vibe. Nothing even happened. We were just catching up and enjoying the moment. When I woke up, I felt really emotional, and I went to go on Facebook with the intention of messaging the son for a catch-up, when the first thing I saw was his Facebook status saying that his dad passed away that night. I can't explain it. That was the only dream I ever had about that family, and it happened the same night the dad died. To me, that's crazy. Seeing shadows move on their own when I was alone at home. My mom and I have a weird, psychic connection at times. Two-time really weirded me out. The first time, I'd gone to an acquaintance's grad party and wasn't having a great time. I sent my mom a text asking her to come pick me up and got a reply almost immediately. She told me in the car that she had been working in the garden outside for a long-ass time when she suddenly felt the need to go inside and check her phone, which was right when I sent her the text. Second time freaks me out way more. I had just gotten into a car accident. My fault. I was the only one hurt, and it was minor whiplash. I called her in a daze to come help. She had apparently gotten a horrible feeling that I, specifically, and not my sister, had gotten hurt and was grabbing her keys and going into the garage to come find me. At the same moment, I called her. These don't happen often, but when they do, it makes me question some shit. Seeing my phone fly across the room, my brother and I were in his bedroom sitting across from each other and talking. My phone was on his computer desk, which was in between us. It just shot off the desk and slid away on the floor. We looked at each other speechless. It was so freaking weird. He actually went on to have multiple, and I am a worse, shit happen in that room. It's a whole story, haha. Happy ending though. If you want, you can like and subscribe.